for the sake of the conversation, I guess I'm just going to act like everybody is 16 because that's when they can actually access some of those services on their own. They can come in. They can't come to shelter to stay in shelter, but they can receive services. So you have to be actually 18 before you can actually come into shelter to receive your own services. But again, between 18 and 24, that's a specialized population when we're talking about youth. We're talking about aging out of the system. That whole age group there is one of those underserved populations, is what we call it. But because we now are starting to understand, we all understand that domestic violence has been around forever. It's just been around forever. But there is now conversation being had that if domestic violence has been around forever, that means when I was 2, domestic violence was around. So if domestic violence is such a normal thing, we are beginning to understand that we got to catch our children, to educate our children, to get in the tools that they need, that is necessary to break the cycle. And so 18 to 24 is that specialized area, that specialized group nowadays, that there are very pointed services for that group. I just heard about a program the other day called the BOSS program through Ohio Guidestone. Another program, 18 to, well, I think they start 16 to 25 actually. And so they have specialized services. They have therapy. They have rent help. They have school help. It's all of these programs for this age group because they're trying to catch, and give tools for this age group so they're not consistently repeating that cycle that we see so many people repeat all of the time. I want to give you guys some instances of like for me as a mother, I'm very open with my children. So I have a set of twins. They're 19 now, but going through school, I had the open conversations with my kids. So my daughter, when she was of dating age, anything that she felt like was not normal, the first thing she always asked me, is this considered a red flag? Is this a red? Because that's how we talk, red flag, green flag, for lack of a better word. Is this a red flag? Is this a red flag? So much so that it was very annoying. But at the same time, I was happy to say my daughter can come have that conversation with me versus experiencing something that she feels is not normal, but not having a platform to come sit down and talk with my parent or a friend or somebody that knows something and say, "Oh, baby girl, yep, that ain't normal right there. You should run." Not many people feel comfortable having that conversation, and that's part of the problem. 81% of teenagers will never tell anybody that they are being abused in any way, shape, or form. That's a big number, y'all. That's a very, very big number. 81%? That means nobody ever told, for lack of a better word. That's a very big number when we're talking about someone. Did you have a question? Did you have a question? No. Okay. That's a very big number when we're talking about someone experiencing something so very traumatic. To not have a platform to go tell. If I go tell my friends, I'm expecting my friends to keep that a secret and not go tell someone that can help me. So 9 times out of 10, I'm not really telling my friends because depending on your friend group, I want my friends to tell. So I used to travel around to the school. We did a presentation called Tina Project, but it was talking about teen dating violence. And so kids used to always ask me, they have that special code where you don't tell when we find something out, we're not sharing secrets. And so I would tell them, I said, do you realize that if I can come to your school and I can tell you about a 17, 18-year-old girl who was in this situation, she didn't feel comfortable telling her parents. Every time her parents seen bruises on her, she had a story of why she had these bruises. So eventually walked into a situation where this boyfriend who had began to stalk her and do some crazy stuff, I'm trying to get away. He brings a shotgun to her home and he fatally kills her and himself. Her friends, long after the fact, began to have a conversation with her parents that, oh, we did know what was going on. We did tell her maybe she should stop. And so the young girl's mom, well, why did y'all never come to me? She asked us not to tell. And so although that's a very graphic story, it paints the picture that if you're keeping my terrible secret, I could somehow end up losing my life. Right. And so I would tell them, I said, I would rather lose my friends because I narked on them but know that I got somebody to help them because they're actually still alive and I don't have to attend their funeral with this horrible secret, knowing that I knew this horrible thing that could potentially save their life. And I actually never told anybody because my friend asked me to keep it a secret. So I always encourage young people when I'm talking to them, please tell somebody. Even if your friend is going to be mad at you and maybe the friendship won't be the same. Some secrets are worth breaking. You know, I want to tell the secret because I want to see you tomorrow. Even if I can't talk to you because you're mad, I told your secret. At least I get to see you at school. At least I'm not going to your funeral. At least I don't have the guilt of knowing that if I had have said something, maybe the outcome would have been different. So one thing that we have to get comfortable is having those conversations with our youth. It is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable if someone sits and if when my daughter was 16, if she wanted to come talk to me about sex, guess who did not want to have that conversation?
Right. You.
I sure did not. But you know what? I had to step aside of being that parent, and I had to give her the platform to sit down and have this conversation with me. I had to be able to give her the tools to know what consent means. That's one of the biggest things that at the Battered Women's Shelter that we talk about a lot. What is consent? Do we know what consent is? And sometimes they don't know what consent is. Some of these young girls feel like, oh, well, you know, he told me that if I didn't do it, somebody else was going to do it, so I feel like I must do it. That's not consent. That's manipulation.
Yes, absolutely.
But sometimes they don't know that. They just, okay. Amen.
And
And the girl closer. If you really love them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Normal. Yeah. So when I began to have the sex talk as a teenager, I got a whooping. I really did. My parents, I got a whooping. And so that shut my voice down. Like, who can I go talk to about this stuff? If I'm going to get in trouble because I'm naturally curious, this is a conversation. I didn't say I was doing anything. I said I need answers. I want you to answer that. And so I understand where you're coming from. Sometimes for parents, it's difficult for a parent to sit there and think of everything that I did, and I'm trying to tell you my kid want to do some of those things. And so that's why a lot of times parents will shut that conversation down because I know what I was doing. I don't need my baby girl to be doing the same thing. And so let's not have that conversation. And then, okay, so add, your relationship with God on top of it, you really don't want to have that conversation. So what I did as a parent is sat down with myself first and I said, you know what? I was a kid. I was a teenager. I was sneaking behind my parents' back. I was doing all of this stuff too. So how fair is it for me not to give my child a platform to come ask questions? I have instilled in my kids that I need you to wait till you marry. I know what the Bible say. I'm giving you this information. But you know what? You got questions? Okay. I called her doctor and I set up a sex education class. She was curious. oh, we don't need no babies right now. So you know what? Let's take you down there and have them get you on some birth control while we're having this conversation. And I sat and I had that conversation with her. It was very, very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But at the same time, I said, I'm a parent that I can't let me being uncomfortable talking about sex and all of these things with my children keep me from giving them the information that they need to make good choices. I need you to make good choices. I need you to understand that if you're going to do this, you need some protection. You need to do thus, thus, and so. If this is something that you are choosing to do, even though I told you the Bible said, but if you are choosing to go out and make the choice, make this grown person choice to do what it is that you are attempting to do. This is what I need. This is the information I'm giving you. I need you to understand that the first time something happens that makes you uncomfortable, you have the choice to say, no, I don't like that, and I need you to stop. I need you to understand, Jalen, my 19-year-old son, the first time her body freezes, that's your indication that it's time for you to stop. Not because y'all was just kissing. I need you to understand it's time for you to stop because her body told you no, even if she can't verbalize, I don't like this anymore. But parents got to be able to have that conversation. They got to be able to give their kids that platform to say, hey, come ask me these questions. It's going to make me uncomfortable, but I'm willing because I need you to have information. I want you to have the information more so than how uncomfortable it is for me as a parent to sit and talk with my unmarried children who I'm telling you this is what the Bible say. It's very comfortable. But at the same time, I need you to have that information. I need you to make informed decisions about your body. I need you to understand where your boundaries is. I need you to have all of this information that my parents did not give me. My parents shut it all the way down and put me on punishment after the whooping. And I was finished. That was my experience. So based off of that experience and then based off of the fact that after that, I went behind my parents' back and I got in a very abusive relationship. Not only was it normal for me to experience abuse, but you also shut me down when I had questions. I got in trouble when I had questions. So instead of going back to get in trouble again, I'm just going to go do what I see is normal for me. And I want to explore and experience what I think I should be doing at 14 years old. And I found out the hard way. So I tried to change the narrative when it came to my children. And so when I go out and I speak, parents, we got to change the narrative. It is uncomfortable. As a church member, yes, I have a very good relationship with God. I'm in church, I serve, I do all of that stuff. And I tell all my friends, put your daughter on some birth control. Go have that conversation. You know, people judge me because I put my daughter on birth control. At the end of the day, I didn't care. I would talk to the mom, just because I mean, you know how moms can be about their kids, even with the grandparents. So I would talk to their moms and then say, hey, let's sit together. You know, I didn't give y'all that platform, but you know, I'm learning some new stuff, and let's sit and have this conversation. I understand that kids are still going to do what kids do. I'm gonna go out and I'm still going to do this, but at least I gave you good information. Right. Yeah. I would have a conversation.
Tia Razor. and there's
Kids are different.
you can just say I want them to or something different, but if they need it, they can take it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Clear.
So I think, part of the problem that we run into is because you have your secular side and then you have your faith-based side. Those of us who believe one way and then those of us who believe a different way. So that's why it's such a battle because it's like, okay, what's the right way to teach? Can I teach by my morals and values of thus saith the Bible? Or what am I teaching because society says this is what's acceptable and this is what's going on now. So I actually do agree with you. In my own personal faith-based business, I have that conversation. Um, and I don't. My personal opinion is totally different than what conversations I can sit and have with people. And I think a lot of times we have to rightly divide that because I can have a conversation with you. I can give you facts and I can give you all of this information, but I can still go home and have my own personal beliefs and how I feel about a situation. That doesn't have to play into the conversation that I'm a part of. Because sometimes it's the information that's needed. It's not my judgment. It's not my personal, values of the situation, but we need information and our kids need information. Now, why are groups like this so wonderful? Is because we have the opportunity to still have all of those conversations and have it from a faith-based standpoint because this is how we believe. And that's why I have a faith-based business. It's how I believe, and this is how I'm putting my service out. But at the same time, I'm inclusive enough to have an open dialogue with people so we can all understand. Especially when it comes to our team. Me and my husband, when we go, we literally have a conversation with youth, and we don't say love is blind. We say love is not blind. What do you need to know when you're navigating your own intimate relationships with people? What conversations are coming up? What are they asking you to do that makes you feel uncomfortable? But society says it's normal and you should be doing that. a lot of times, especially for young women, because society says I gotta look like this, I'm supposed to be showing this, I gotta send that picture, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. And then my parents won't talk to me, my parents won't have this conversation. So sometimes I find myself getting involved in some things that I'm not comfortable with, but this is what society says I gotta do, so I go with that. And no one has ever sat down and had a conversation and told me, you know what? It's okay for you to say no. It's okay for you to say, this isn't normal for me. It's okay to say, this is not where I feel comfortable. Maybe you go find somebody who's going to give you that, but for me and how I feel about myself, I'm not doing that. No one tells people it's okay to do that. No one says it's okay to have boundaries when it comes to your body. Gives kids the opportunity to sit and have that conversation for them to discover on their own with some guided answers and questions that is okay for me to not involve myself in that. It makes grown people uncomfortable. It makes people uncomfortable to sit and say, domestic violence and sexual assault happens at church too. It makes people
Yes.
uncomfortable. And if I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to have the conversation with you because it makes me uncomfortable. So then you are still shut down. Your question's not answered. My voice being stifled in, and I'm still walking away trying to navigate on my own and try to figure it out on my own. Still doing things that make me feel uncomfortable because no one was open enough to have this conversation. And that's what our youth is running into. They're running into people shutting them down because it makes them uncomfortable to have a conversation. Thank God for people like you who can have that conversation. Not everybody is okay having those conversations, so it makes it difficult for our youth who have questions.
I I also remember being a teenager. I remember trying to have that talk with my mother. I remember getting slapped. Um, just because I was curious. I just wanted to ask. Not saying I was looking for doing things, but just because I asked the question. Majority of my girlfriends at that time, they were engaging in sexual activities. I was the one who kept saying, "No, I'm going to be a virgin when I get married. No, I don't want to be bothered. No, 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 no." But I'm also a woman at the time. I'm also growing. Those needs are there. And those needs, I need to ask questions. I need to be able to talk. That's when Planned Parenthood came into existence. And I was like so happy for that because that gave us an outlet at the time, other than being taught at school sexual different things, which I felt uncomfortable with the sexual ed classes because the guys would be in class, you're girls, you're trying to focus and concentrate and learn the material. The guys would be in class laughing and giggling, and it was just hard to focus. But Planned Parenthood, when they came, they were really being able to educate you, let you know what you needed to know, had the supplies for you if you wanted them. So I ended up leaving school one day after school, and I ended up going to this new Planned Parenthood building, and they conversated with me, and I had a good time. Time I was supposed to be home at a certain time. Time went over and over, and then they gave me supplies. I wasn't even doing anything. Just the thought I wanted to be safe in case if I ever decided to do something. Oh, honeys, when I came home, oh my God, my mother seen that bag of condoms and all kinds of stuff. And oh my God, it was horrible. And she told, and then, I have a brother, he's only like a year older than me, only 13 months older than me. And I remember when it was mentioned, as soon as I brought the bag, my mom said, "See what your sister's got? Huh? You see what your sister's doing?" And I felt like, oh my God. And then when she told my dad, I just wanted to run up under the table and hide, and I just said, oh my God.
It's so funny to
And it
me
was
that,
terrible.
why is that uncomfortable for people? Because we all do it.
Right. It's
I don't
right.
understand that.
I just think my mother couldn't handle the fact that I was growing up.
Yeah.
I was in that situation where, or the possibility, because I even talked about having a guy. He was a tutor me for math. My mom said, "You won't be getting tutored from him. You ain't trying to go tutor. You ain't trying to go get tutored. You going because you want to have sex with that man."
Yeah.
And sex wasn't even on my mind at that time. Well, I can't say it wasn't on my mind, but I just want to have. Yeah, he was a senior. But anyways, I wanted to be tutored for math, and that was a problem. That was like a no-no. My mom started watching me real closely, and it was always an issue. But when it came to my children, I would, like you said, I put it on the table. I be real with them on what's going on. I would tell them different scenarios. We would talk about different scenarios of different things that was happening to different people. I would tell them some of the things that happened to some of the family members or some of my friends or things they were able to see because one of the little cousins got pregnant at 11. Yeah. And nobody in the family even realized that the girl was pregnant until she was 6 months gone. So she ended up she had the child. She ended up being a wonderful mother, terrific mother. But thank God, that she had good parents that were able to guide her. But it wasn't because she was being curious. She was a young girl and she ended up getting a stepbrother who came from New York. Yeah, the pastor's son. So, you just don't never know. That's why when your kid's at home, you got to also think what could possibly be going on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even know. By the time they realized their belly was blowing up, she was too far gone. So you just never know what predicament you can be in. But with my daughters, I would say things and I'd say it directly what it was. They're like, "Ugh, mom." I think my daughters never ended up, thank God, becoming a teenage mother. But they said, "Mom, you used to turn us away from it. Used to make us scared." And I wasn't trying to scare them. I was just trying to give them the real. And I tell them, if you end up with a baby, I'm not going to say you can't have that baby, but you're going to have a tough life. But that's going to be your responsibility. That's going to be, and that's what I said.
Cause I have a 7-year-old, and so when I went to doing sex ed with my teenager, I said, "You know how you don't like your little sister coming in your room?" I said, "That's exactly what you're gonna go through." And I said, "I am sorry to tell you, I will not be raising your child because I have my own." And so I put that responsibility back on her. These are the choices that you're trying to make, and you're not protecting yourself. You're not taking accountability for what you're doing. If you get pregnant and you have a baby, it's not my baby. It's your baby.
That's right.
And she was so dumb. She was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "We're gonna break that tradition that grandma got to raise the baby." I said, "I'm not doing that. I said, "I am 40. I'm not doing that. You're the mom." I said, "I will support you. You can stay in my house. I will do everything." I said, "But when you want to go out at night with your friends, guess what? You have a baby. If you can't find a babysitter and you ain't paying me, I'm going to charge you. This is life. This is real life. I'm going to charge you just like I would charge anybody else. If you can't afford my fees, sorry for your luck."
I have one more question. Oh,
Well, you could go ahead.
I have one more question. With your group that you're from, the agency you're from, what if a youth checked out and they were able to gain emancipation? Okay.
I would assume though, because we can take kids at 16,
Right.
I would assume that if they're emancipated at that point, they're considered an adult.
Right.
So they, as long as they had at 16, so I don't know, everybody does it different. Sometimes a 16-year-old can come up to like 5 times to get those services before they got to get a parent involved. So it really kind of depends. So let's say they were emancipated at 16 and they came 5 times, and then the question was, okay, now we got to get parents involved and blah blah blah. All they would have to do is, so I'm emancipated at that point.
I remember there was a while in Akron for a while. I want to say the kids were probably from 13, 14, 15, and they were emancipating these kids here in Akron. But what they found out, that it ended up becoming a bigger issue because these girls ended up having more babies, more issues, more violences, and everything else that was going on. So then they kind of curved and tried to put a stop to that because it was more out of control. Now you got these 14, 15 year, 16, 17 year olds. I'm grown and you can't tell me what to do. That's because they were emancipated.
I just want to give a comment. Thank you so much for, coming to talk. That is such a hard place because you have young people that are acting out and you don't understand, just because when you talked about the silence, don't tell nobody this is going on. And I just wanted to be real because that's something that happened to me as because you know how you ask your mom, can I go spend the night over such and such house? And then they say no, but then you like, Mom, can I go? Mom, 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 mom. And she be like, oh, I am just so tired. Go. I need to meet the mother, And so with my friend, she was like 5 years old. We like 5, 6 years old. Okay, so my mother allowed me at that time because she didn't let me go spend the night over just anybody's house. So she had to meet the mother, whoever, but it was the grandmother that was raising her granddaughter or somebody's daughter. But anyway, my mom met her and she said, okay, I'll give my permission. And so, you go over, I'm over there, and the little girl is like trying to fill on me. And I'm thinking, what's up with you? What's wrong with you? You know? And she was like, well, don't tell nobody, but my uncles are doing this to me. And I felt some kind of way because she said, don't tell because they'll make me go back to the children's home. And I want to stay with my grandma. And I'm thinking, I'm 5, 6 years old. I don't know I don't know what to do with this. You feeling on me, and I'm like feeling so uncomfortable. Like, don't be doing this. What? You know? And so I realized how the enemy steals our children innocency at such an early age. And it's hurtful because you don't know what to do with this. I didn't feel comfortable telling my parents.
Right.
And then plus I promised her I wouldn't say anything because I didn't want her to be taken away, and then she get in other foster homes and I don't know what they would do to her. And so we just like stopped being friends. Like, I didn't see her anymore after my kindergarten class. So, but I just wanted to let you know, you're right. Kids tell each other because they don't know how to tell other people how to voice it, or they might get in trouble for saying something, and then their friend, and so that was definitely a hard place. But I wanted to ask you, is it just do you speak just at junior highs or high schools, or
The last
can you
group
do
we spoke
elementary?
to, like a couple weeks ago, was college-ish age. So the issue with going younger is you have to have parents' permission, like they have to sign a permission slip. So technically, sometimes you can start at 11 and start having that conversation because they lightly have those type of conversations in their health classes. But anything younger than that, you have to have a parent sign off that it's okay for my child to participate in this conversation. So it just depends. If parents say okay, then yes. Because I've had to have the conversation. One of my first heartbreaking cases that I took on um, is she was 6. Now she was a 6-year-old that acted like she was my age. And so we were called on this particular case because parents are sometimes, I understand parents are sometimes put in a hard situation. The little girl was 6, her brother was 17. And so the 17-year-old brother made his 6-year-old sister his girlfriend with everything that entailed. And so the even crazier part is mom was mom. Like, she wasn't a bad mom, she was a at work mom. And so her daughter ends up telling her, but her daughter told what her brother was doing. She didn't tell on him. She told because I'm a scorned woman, for lack of a better word. The brother ends up getting a girlfriend, and the little girl became very upset because what the brother was doing with his girlfriend used to be her job. And so she was mad, and that's how she ended up actually having that conversation with her mom. Is she was jealous that her brother wasn't having her do those things anymore. And so we got the case, and we began to talk with this little girl, and it was really really hard to, even though she was 6, it was very hard to work with that mindset because for her what they were doing was very normal. It was okay. No one ever said we couldn't do this. And so imagine me at the time, I was like 30, trying to have a conversation with a 6-year-old to tell her how this is not okay. And then you have pushback from the mom because I don't want to turn my 17-year-old, I don't want to pursue the case. It wasn't that mom didn't like do certain stuff, but she didn't want to pursue like criminal charges against the son. And so it was almost a situation of one child against the other, and what am I supposed to do? Which she didn't, in my opinion, I feel like she didn't choose correctly because
Right.
she didn't pursue. And so then not only now do you have to deal with a little girl who gets the rejection from her brother, even as crazy as it sounds, but now I also have a parent who failed to protect me when they could have protected me. And a lot of times we don't understand that it's uncomfortable. Like if I'm molested by a family member, then yes, things may happen. But and this is prevalent in Black families. I beat up Uncle so and so, and we did all of this damage to him. And then at the next Christmas function, Uncle so and so was right back at the family table. And so again, now as the victim, my voice has been stifled because now we don't talk about it anymore. It's this horrible, bad thing. Oh, hush, we don't talk about that. It was handled. But yet, in my mind, in my kids' mind, handled means they're in jail. There was the cops came and put them in handcuffs and took them away. That's how kids process the end of a thing. But if he's sitting next to me at the dinner table in a few months and we don't talk about it, now I did something wrong. Even though I didn't do anything, but now I did something wrong because you keep telling me I can't talk about that uncle raped me. Say the word. Like I tell the people, no, you say the word of what happened to you. Stop taking away what happened to you because it makes all of us uncomfortable to see me say or hear me say I was raped. I was raped by my uncle. It's okay for me to say that because that's what happened to me. Not, oh, shh, we don't talk about that. Why don't we? And now we see why our kids have such a hard time coming to have these conversations is because we tell them don't talk about those things. We're not having those conversations. We don't make space for those conversations even when it happens. When young girls are sexually assaulted, you want to know the conversation we have with them? Why were you there? Didn't I tell your butt to stay in the house? You shouldn't have snuck out. I said don't go. So now something horrible happened to me because I snuck out. I ain't going to tell mom. I'm about to get in trouble. You know how many times I've been to a hospital with a young girl who refused to tell their parents anything because I'm gonna get in trouble? My focus isn't on that I was sexually assaulted. My focus is on the fact that mom told me not to go and I went. I don't care, girl. We can talk about that later. What happened to you? We're calling the police. We're doing all of those things. But instead, at 16, I won't say anything because my mom gonna be mad because she told me not to go. Or how much were you drinking? What did you have on? What was you wearing? If you hadn't been wearing that, it wouldn't happen to you. How was that a fair conversation for somebody who took what should have been freely given? You took it from me, and at the same time, now I'm the culprit. I'm the wrong party because maybe I had on a dress that you thought was too tight. How is that fair to our youth? Who there I'm growing up. Okay, yep, I do got that. I seen this one girl on TV with it. My daughter's 7, and she's in love with this girl named Lele on Disney.
They all love Lele.
Yes, loves her. I want the sparkly stuff like her. Why kids? That's how they learn. This is how they start experience. But we take it away from them because it makes me uncomfortable. And I don't want to deal with the fact that you were sexually assaulted, but I do want to deal with the fact that if you hadn't had that tube top on, he wouldn't have jumped out the bushes at you. That's the wrong conversation too. No, you know the person who assaults you. It's very rarely the white van creeping down the street. Those type of cases are so few and far in between. It is typically somebody that I felt comfortable with, somebody that I trusted, then took that trust and abused that trust. And those are the conversations that we're afraid to have because that family wide open when we talked about that. And let's just sweep that back because we want to preserve the family image. Listen, my dad was a whole pastor, but guess what? He was so very, very abusive. He beat us, like beat us blood. He broke my nose type stuff. And then he would go preach on Sunday. And we didn't have the platform to have that conversation when the pastor did.
Right.
We was the preacher kids. So we don't give a platform for our kids to have that conversation. I got in trouble when I went told. Yes, my dad broke my nose at home. Guess what? When children's services came to our house, Tia was the liar, and they turned around and they walked away because look how nice their house is. He's the pastor of the church.
Mm.
We stifle our youth voices because those conversations make us very, very uncomfortable to have those type of conversations. So we're not going to have the conversation. We literally turn and we walk in the other direction. Except groups like this give a platform, and that's not many, especially in Akron. They will they just won't. They will not have a conversation.
No.
The deacon over there, you know what? His tie is big, so we gonna not look at the fact that his wife's got a black eye. Those are real situations. So imagine our youth dealing with that. If we as adults find it uncomfortable to have those conversations, kids are not having those conversations either. They may talk about it amongst themselves, but the person who can actually do something about it, which is the adult that should give them a platform to have a conversation, we don't give them a platform to have a conversation.
I was a foster mother. I don't do it no more for about 25 years. And I dealt with the therapeutic children. So I dealt with the ones. So I know what you're talking about. And the worst case that I had was I got her at 4.5 years old. And it's like when you deal with kids that have been so abused, it's like putting all those pieces, trying to put all those pieces back together. But with her case, it was so particular because I was planning, I fell in love with her. I was going to adopt her and everything. And when she was able to trust me, it took a while because it was to the point where I didn't know if I could even be able to help her because she was so much on the attack with everybody, fighting you, cussing you out, everything. All the signs were there. We knew somebody had abused her. We just didn't know who. And when we found out, I was able to kind of work with her and found out some things. And I was floored. I wanted to crumble. My heart hurt so much for her. I would go in my room and cry. My poor baby had been trafficked out. She wasn't but a baby. And to come to find out, like you said, some of the people at church, the people had this poor child. They got her as a newborn because they took all the mom's kids. But grandma had all the kids. They were in foster care. But her grandma ended up with all her kids. So when she was the fifth to be born, so grandma was like, I'm not taking no more of your kids. Get off drugs type things, you know. And she said, I'm going to teach her a lesson. She didn't get her. She let her go into foster care. So when she went into foster care, grandma was thinking she's in foster care with this woman that fostered her and her husband. The mama was in her 80s. The husband was in his late 70s. And when I talked to the people on the phone, you would have think they were the best grandma and grandparents in the world. But I knew something wasn't right. It took me a minute, but when it all came out, those were the ones. And I couldn't believe it. I was devastated. And this is the reason why they actually got rid of her. And come to find out, they had got all of their kids as newborns. They were taping them, filming them, recording them, all kinds of stuff. When she got to telling me different things, and I couldn't understand, but when I started putting the pieces together, I was devastated. This lady was like, you would thought she was the grandma on the street. The way she talked, I probably would let her watch my kids. She was so nice, and you thought. And she started telling me that she would watch the neighborhood kids and all kinds of. Oh yeah, and they were very big church members, and they had to leave one church because one of the kids told it.
Yeah.
And the pastor never, like you said, it should have went further than that. They didn't.
I don't know how much time I got left, but okay. I'm gonna just say, if you are working with youth, notice them, they were an A student, and then suddenly their grades drop. Things begin to change. Kids tell what's going on with them, not always verbally. It'll be through their actions, how they girls that are promiscuous. Girls that are promiscuous are who you never would have assumed this would be. A lot of times is they're promiscuous because I'm trying to I'm trying to take back my control that was taken from me. So a lot of times it's less about sex. It's more about the sexual abuse that occurred. So you ripped it from me and took it without my permission. Now it has to be on my terms. So I need to give permission to whoever. So it may seem like I'm just nasty and I'm being promiscuous, but there's always something behind that. Young kids will show you how to play when something has happened to them. And then boys become completely silent. I was a star football player. Now I have no interest in football. I have no interest in basketball. So kids begin to tell when something has happened to them by their actions. So although they will never verbalize it, and that's that very, very big number I gave y'all, pay attention to their actions because a lot of times through their actions, they're going to tell you exactly what happened to them. They just don't have the courage to verbalize what happened to
They're paralyzed.
them. That's the biggest one.
Now I had a little girl, and when she would take a nap, she would always hump the the blanket vigorously.
Yeah.
And I addressed it, and I told my supervisor how we could handle it. And I felt like it was the parents. They both worked down at the main library. They wouldn't do anything. Instead, they withdrew the children out of the daycare. And I feel like you can't even trust the people you work with. You need to go and handle it yourself.
It makes people uncomfortable, so they run instead of handling it.
I would like to thank you, Miss Tia, for coming, Tia Payne for coming, and being part of our group today. We enjoyed information, and the sad part about all of this is it's more prevalent now
Right.
than ever before. Even with the way they're promoting LGTS and all that community, they're pushing it, and they're pushing it through even the cartoons.
Oh
They got
yeah.
that even through the TV commercials. They got the guys kissing the guys, the women hugging each other,
Even on
kissing on
Hallmark.
each other. And it's getting to the point where it can be confusing, especially to our younger children who don't understand. Because there was a cartoon that was on where the boy, first he's the boy, he's running around like a boy, then he goes in like Superman, he goes into the booth, like the changing booth, like telephone booth, and then he switches up now and he comes out, he's a girl. I said, oh yeah, it's out of control. So if you don't watch some of the cartoons that your kids, or even some of
Yeah,
the
you gotta be
stories that your
careful.
kids are watching, even looking at some of the kids, anytime I'm looking at some of the kids on a Nickelodeon show, and you're looking like, I'm looking as an adult saying, is that a guy or is that a girl? I mean, come on now.
Be the parent that's gonna kick your kids' door in. I was. No, we don't do closed doors here. I take your phone, I pay the bill. Yes, I want to see what you're talking about.
Right.
We gotta be those parents so we can stay up. Because a lot of times you can find it in text messages. These kids text everything. You find it in the text message and the lingo they
Social
have.
media.
Like they have little code words and all of this type of stuff. Like I make sure I stay abreast of all that type of stuff because I had those conversations and I'd be like, what does that mean? But I had to start finding out. So I'm capable of having those conversations and having them openly. Because some of these kids nowadays, they do a whole bunch, but they're exposed to a whole bunch through social media. Everybody got a phone. Like I'm a social media queen. Like I'll be on there too. But I'd be like, dang, why do they got that on there? But then think about it, our kids see that too. Like my 7-year-old daughter, she participated in this little TikTok dance. Oh, I said, whose child is that? So I had to shut her all of that down. Like, no, you cannot have this. You cannot have YouTube. You can't do any of these things. Because at the time she was 5, at 5, and you shopping and catch up. And I said, oh no, we don't do this. So even though I was prevalent with my older, it just escaped my notice with my 2 younger ones. And so I had to rethink how much access they had on their tablets and all of that type of stuff because they've been exposed to so much.
That's funny how you said that. I don't know how you want to say it, but I'm just getting used to social media and my grandchildren actually understanding what's going on, because they're 11, 3, 5, 7, 11. But reality set in when my son gave the 11-year-old a cell phone because he's getting in activities and so forth. Then he tells me, Mom, Josiah has to turn his phone in at a certain time. We go through the texts, we go through this, we go through that. There's a lot of this. He said, you have to do that because if you don't, he said, it's gonna be a problem. They had a problem in their school at one time. And parents, grandparents, you let your grandchildren, I do this sometimes, use the phone to play games. You can't do that all the time. You gotta have a laundry list of certain things. You gotta, yes, you do. Yes, you do, because you don't know what they are getting into, so. But, I'm gonna turn this over to Carla. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
all. That's right. That's right.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't trust nobody. I just didn't do it. And
But
we-
those come from experiences that they have. That's why parents do that.
Oh, yeah.
Poorly seen
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, my mom was like that too. She didn't let us go nowhere, but she had the experience of going somewhere, and my mom was sexually abused. And so she, even though she had her own toxic trauma with my father, when it came to us going out, oh, we didn't go nowhere.
Mm.
But
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that is.
Yes.
in the house.
Yes.
Oh, that's
That's-
good.
Absolutely, Domingo.
We all just need to be cautious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
On behalf of that, Tia, we want to thank you for coming out and we enjoyed everything you had. We hope to see you again.
I also would like to say thank you for this. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I'm glad that I know we've been talking just, and yes, I know who she is, and I've been following you, and we've been following. We sort of know indirectly we've been following each other. But and I think that's wonderful. But I think I might overstep my bounds. That she will probably be back with us on another level with her ministry, and because that was the real reason I was calling you the second time. Just didn't know who I was talking to, but God is good. And so I'm very pleased and happy that she is with us. And you make the Better Women Shelter look very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want